Hello and welcome to episode 43 of Tech a Break with myself, Andrew Reid from Resilient Business Systems. And
hello, my name is Adam and I'm from HubSpot Media. What's wrong with your voice today?
I don't know. Hello, my friend.
Hello,
Who are you?
Do you know what? Who are you?
And who am I?
So, yeah, it's what we're saying is we've been busy, haven't we, again, Mr. Reid?
My friend. Goodness me.
But you know that work I was doing alongside you?
Yes, that work for my lovely, lovely customer.
Yes. We are ready.
Oh, ready, in fact.
Pretty much, yeah. We just need to stick
So the last email was to my customer asking for her details?
A code
to
put in. Yeah. So this is really rubbish podcasting, but we'll fist bump. If you're listening, that was a fist bump. You should have heard explosions and lightning.
Boom. Kasplush.
It's kasplush. There we go.
Who are you?
Who am I? I kind of said it in that weird voice, but Adam from HubSpot Media.
Right.
So before we dive into this episode, we've been getting bookings on our cybersecurity event thing,
And the lovely Hillary from Bevan Vat and Jason Gurney had a Darlington Club meeting last night that unfortunately we couldn't attend. Michelle and I were busy, but they very kindly promoted it for us.
There we go. Splendid.
Lovely,
Thank you,
people.
Jason. Andy loves you really.
No, I don't. I hate it. I hate Jason.
I love it how you tell him to his face.
Oh, I know. Behind a microphone.
Right, Mr. Reid.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Reid, you have someone sat to your left.
So I do.
You've brought a guest in.
I brought a guest.
He's told me nothing of such guest.
No, I haven't.
But as I said, I have taken a LinkedIn.
You little sneaky bugger. Mystery guest, can you introduce yourselves?
Hello, my name is Carl Rutter. I am a senior level designer at Expression Games.
Yeah.
How good
so
is this?
I'll be honest. Well, I looked at this on LinkedIn this morning, and I've had a
So
little
ahead of the game as normal.
Yes, this morning, during my breakfast. And when I saw Expression Games, I was like, Andy, you nailed it.
Absolutely,
Nailed it.
mate.
I think you've got the dream job for every aspiring
Hang on.
person
I'm
in
not
the
sure
world.
he'd agree with that.
Well, that's what I'm sure we'll get into.
Hang on, his boss told me to say, I love my job.
In that robotic voice as well.
Yeah, absolutely, mate.
So you work for a gaming company, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
That's amazing.
It is. And your role is?
Senior level designer.
And what does that mean to our one listener out there? Hi, one listener.
There's two. I told you. There's two. There's two of them.
Your mum doesn't count.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So as a level designer, my role is to oversee the development of levels and maps in a game. Not to be confused with artists who make everything look pretty. They do a fantastic job doing that.
Yeah.
But my responsibility is to make sure that the level works functionally correctly. It flows nicely. Whenever you play a level and you reach a dead end and you're frustrated and annoyed, that's a bad level designer. That is something I try and avoid.
Wow.
So
Okay, but there are some games, Carl, that, there are a dead end.
Yes.
But it's not a dead end to the objective of the game. It's like to find a secret or to find it. But what you're saying is you try to make every level, no matter which way that I enter a map, to get to the end goal.
yeah, unseen.
Wow.
It's an unseen process. Like, if a level flows pretty well, you just know it. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't flow pretty well, you also know that. Your job is to make sure that it flows as well as it possibly can.
Okay. Now, me and Adam are avid gamers, as you are, I know that, Carl. But if you think back to the original games of Wolfenstein 3D,
Oh, yeah.
where you literally had this
With the hand,
wall,
with the hand doing this.
wall, dead end, wall,
Yeah.
dead end. Press the wall, it moves. That's obviously a world apart from what you do now.
It is, yeah. And obviously, they set the foundation. They set the benchmark for the entire industry. And we owe everything we've got to these initial designers. John Romero, who obviously made Wolfenstein and Doom.
Another classic.
Those are the legends. We've followed their processes over the years and evolved them as time has evolved, as the industry has evolved, and as the player psychology has evolved as well.
That's incredible. So go on.
I've got so many questions.
I was going to say, the week before we did the cybersecurity with the Bitcoin. Rob, what a great episode that was.
If you want to know about Bitcoin or at least
that's
get a bit more understanding about it, if you don't know anything about it, that was a great episode.
That episode, Carl, I was like, Adam just watched my face and I was like, I want to ask questions. That same face is on. So I'm just going to let you go, Adam.
Okay, so my first question is, obviously I just said like, dream job, gaming, yeah, let's go, right? So how on earth do you get into that? is my first question. Like, obviously, you enjoy games, I hope.
No, I hate them.
How do you go from school to I'm doing it and I've got a job actively paying myself to do it?
Sure, absolutely, yeah. So obviously, yeah, you're right. You need a passion for games. Surprisingly, there are people out there who don't play games, which I find bewildering.
Yeah, they're just menial people. We don't talk about them.
But yeah, obviously you need to have a passion for games. You need to apply yourself. You need to know what it is you want. Now, you're not necessarily going to know what you want. I didn't, for example. I went into university. I wasn't sure which pathway I wanted to take because obviously there's different departments. You've got design, you've got environment art, you've got animation. And for me, it was just bewildering. Like I was in a world of, whoa, I don't know what's going on here. What pathway do I want to take?
Yeah.
So it's pretty accessible, I would say. Like you don't need to come from a privileged background or anything like that. You just need you need to work on your knowledge, your theory craft, your practical craft, and you just need the passion behind you, and then you can make it in the games industry.
Wow. Because you don't see that many games companies just around on the high street or anything like that. So obviously you've got to go looking.
Yeah.
And then I suppose you've got your qualification. Did you know, to get into it in the first place, did you have to like create your own stuff, like a bit of portfolio type? Like Jess behind camera today, she's a musician, drum and bass artist. So she's singer, yeah. So she's been producing all of her stuff. And at the start of it, obviously you've got to put the work in to be able to go, here it is. Did you have to do that with gaming, I imagine?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of my colleagues and people at university, some of them were fortunate enough to land a job. I wasn't.
Right.
It took me 5 years, actually, to get into the games industry. It was super competitive then, and it's even more competitive now. I would not like to be a junior at this point, trying to get my foot in the door. It would be a colossal nightmare.
Yeah.
But, so for 5 years, I was working a part-time menial job at the meantime. No disrespect to that, because it paid the way.
Well, of course.
But
yeah.
in my free time, I was working on my portfolio as well. So I was using level editors like Far Cry editor, for example, just to create maps. Like because the tools were there available to me, and I didn't have a great deal of time to work on it. So accessibility to those tools was a big factor in able to get rapid working prototypes in quickly onto my portfolio and just get the word out there to as many companies as possible. It was, like I say, it was 5 years. It took a while. I just needed one company to give me a chance. Thankfully, that happened when I went to Codemasters. I took a gamble.
I knew you were going to do that. I knew.
My mouth was open. Carry on. Codemasters, jeez.
So I took a big gamble. I moved about 200 miles away to Leamington Spa on a temporary 3-month contract to work at Codemasters. I must have done a decent job in the QA department because they kept keeping me on for about 2 years.
Yeah, they obviously didn't know you.
So QA being quality assurance.
Quality assurance.
So is it like your job to run into all the walls and see if you go through them?
Absolutely, yeah. So I did a lot of rally driving at the time.
I bet you did.
Yeah, a lot of quality assurance testing on that.
Again, dream job.
Rally games.
Can you test this game all day, please? No.
I suppose I'll have to. Better do it. Sorry, I've got to work back.
Yeah, sorry.
Wow. Okay. So you started quality assurance.
Yes.
I did. Yes. Yeah.
On that side. So you're checking other people's work essentially. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's just what quality assurance is all about.
Wow. Okay.
But not designing your own levels yet. You were just quality testing.
Yes.
Other.
Exactly.
Just again, my mind's already blown. I'm just going to let you continue.
Yeah. So that. Does quality, is that just another word for playing games all day? with the greatest respect. Because that's what you're quality assuring.
So play testing is a part of it, yes, but you've also got to have good communication skills because you've got to write up detailed bug reports, and you've also got to regress those reports as well and make sure that every release comes out in the best possible state that it can. Now, obviously, it wasn't my job to fix everything. It was up to the developers and the other departments, but I had to make sure that every single thing was captured, and then it was up to those guys if they wanted to fix it or not, or if they could fix it later down the line.
I love that. I need to Google something too.
So one of the things I just want to go back to, Carl, whilst Adam is Googling, you mentioned that when you had that free time, when you didn't have a job, you were using map editors that were released by the Far Cry engine. To me, and again, both of me are in that age-old thing, a game back in our days came out, you completed it, job done. That was like you either put it away and think a year later I'll come back to it for replayability. But probably around, I would like to say, the mid-90s, whatever, these companies started releasing their own level map and said, there you go, community. And honestly, that's when I suddenly went, wow, I can create my own Far Cry map. I can create my own X map. That must, again, not just for you, but for the gaming community like me and you, that was a game changer. Sorry to use that phrase.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just incredible.
It's what makes it more accessible to everybody as well. Like, you do have access to things like Unreal Engine from the get-go. You need a semi-decent rig at least to run it.
Yeah.
Rig being computer.
Yes.
Just in case.
Of course, Adam, not a problem.
Yeah, some people understand rig is six pack.
Yeah, not a problem. It's a good shout. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But obviously, engines like that, they don't come with any assets to use, so you've got to create your own. And if you're just jumping in to the industry, not knowing which direction you're going to take, that can be quite overwhelming and daunting.
Oh gosh,
and you probably never get anything done.
Yeah.
So these map editors being released is an absolute saving grace. Really.
Oh, it really is. And you mentioned there about the assets and the Unity engine. And I'm not a game program. I'm a programming coder, as in for business applications. But in the early days of gaming, I did try. And again, I just couldn't get past my own brain going, I am editing a map. And if I wanted to, and I think the very first one, I can't remember the name of it, but it allowed me to pull in the actual characters of the game. And I was like, so I'm going to put him there, and then you play test it, and you run around the corner, and he suddenly starts firing and shooting at it, and you're like, I've just created this. Okay, it was one corner, but you're just like, this is incredible. And then you think, I'll pull in a burning car, I'll pull in the sea, I'll pull in the forest, I'll put in the sky. You were just like, I'm creating my own game. A lot of people back then were going, but you're giving away your secrets. And they're like, no. This is what the community can now do. And as I understand it, a lot of people who have used them level editors have now become game writers in their own right because somebody's gone, oh my God, look at that level of that gentleman's design or that lady's design. Get her on board of this company.
Exactly, yeah. It's broke down all the barriers between the industry and the community.
It's fabulous, isn't
So
it?
when I was Googling, it's right. So Dirt Rally was a Codemasters game.
Yeah.
Dirt Rally 2.0, yes.
Yeah. Do you know what? I had the kids playing that in lockdown. Do you know when we were stuck at home, long days? I was like, right, if we do the homeschooling, the homeschooling. If we do the homeschooling, we can do Dirt Rally 2. You can have you can crash a Mini into a wall repeatedly, which is basically what which is what happened. Toca Race Driver, that was big when I was coming up. And then there's Overlord, there's all sorts of stuff. There's even some of the F1 games.
Were you testing at Codemasters?
Rally games. So I was testing Dirt Rally 2. I did a bit of testing on Grid for the other team.
Yeah.
And my final game before I left there was Dirt 5. I was
I see that on there. There's some pretty cool games. So I've played some of those games that you've tested. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm in the credits for those. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Nice. Yeah.
It is nice to do that.
Wait until I tell my kids. They will love that. They will love that. I did tell them at breakfast. I'm like, I think this is the guy.
No, absolutely. So what was the difference in terms of when you were there, Carl? Again, very small. So, sorry, how long were you at Codemasters?
Just shy of 2 years.
Okay, so in 2 years, you went from Dirt Rally 2 to Dirt Rally 5.
Yes.
In those 2 years, what was the advancement in the graphics?
There was very little in terms of advancement because I was testing the post-launch DLC.
Ah, right.
So I was sort of coming in at the back end of the product.
Yeah.
And then as we transitioned into Dirt 5, I began the early testing of that. But those games were made in the same engine.
Ah, got you. Right, okay. That's fine. Yeah.
I love that.
While you're doing that, I'm gonna Google
So
something.
you've met a game developer in Incognito.
Have I?
And yeah, Rob. So Rob, who we had on from Bitcoin, and when I say game developer, he doesn't develop games. But in the early days of Counter-Strike, and this is us geeking out now, early days of Counter-Strike, so beta versions, Rob created his own house as a map for Counter-Strike, which we were playing, which was hilarious because we're having gunfights and throwing grenades in his kitchen. Which, if that was real, obviously his mum would have told us off. But yeah, so he'd done a bit of that. So I had a bit of experience where there was custom maps. He did create his own house with like little sneaky trapdoor and holes and things you could run through and all that sort of stuff. So I could absolutely see, when it was announced you were coming in, I was like, ooh, this takes me back to all of that. Because I assume, is that how it kind of starts?
Yeah, exactly.
Like
you start
messing around.
Yeah, exactly.
Essentially.
Yeah. You mess around without any sort of theory. It frees you up, to be honest, because you're not under any pressure to sort of deliver a fantastic product. You're just left to your own devices. You can make up whatever you want. And if it sucks, it doesn't matter because it's not gone out to the public. Nobody's going to see it. And that progression, that's how you develop your skills over time. It's like any hobby, really. You just practice, and hone your skills as much as you can. You never stop learning in this trade.
Yeah, absolutely. Never. So you did Codemasters.
Yes.
Then that was 3 months.
Initially, yes.
And then did it get extended?
Yeah, it got extended.
Okay, so what happened then? What sort of period were you there for at Codemasters?
Just shy of 2 years in the end.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I had obviously less free time because I was working full time permanently, but I was still working on my portfolio in the meantime, working on my level design portfolio.
So you've got a full-time job doing that, and then in your free time you're doing even more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically to develop. Good absolutely. On you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You need to work for free in this game, I think, for any career. Like in order to, you won't get paid to do that.
Skills,
yeah, if you're interested, it's a passion, it's what you want to do. You got to get after it.
It goes back to my saying, giving is the new selling.
Yep.
Yeah. Just while I was talking about that, I've got a very good friend of mine, Darren Tunnicliffe. You won't know the name, Carl. Darren Tunnicliffe, when I originally met him when I was contracting, we now developed program together. So some of my customers, I pass on to Darren, and Darren codes for me. I'm just going to read you something. So Darren was originally the founding member of the Pit Bull Syndicate. The Pit Bull Syndicate is now known as Midway Studios. Darren worked on Test Drive 456 and Overdrive, Demolition Racer, and Big Air snowboarding.
Wow.
So he was telling me the exact same thing before I knew. He was doing all the testing for Test Drive 456. Because back in those days, those were like competition. You either were like a dirt rally guy, you were a test drive guy, you were a something guy. So it's crazy how this small world links two people that have probably wrote or tested two of the big games that were influential in my life.
It's incredible, really. I mean, there's so many games companies out there, and it spreads right across the world. And yet, by the same token, it's quite a small, enclosed community of people. Yeah. Like, at some point, you will inevitably come across somebody that you probably worked with in the past, or you at least know of. It's just inevitable because of how small the industry is compared to others, for example.
So I've got a friend who is...
Hang on, that's 4 friends.
Yeah, I know. I've got another friend. Hello, Mr. Tebbs. Tebbsy from the rugby club. He works, but he also does modelling around Armour. Do you know the game at Armour?
Yeah.
But he's like creating the 3D models accurately of, say, tanks, vehicles. Gosh. So you'll be like looking up images on Google. I mean, his search history must be interesting. He's looking up military hardware, but he then creates that digitally as an asset to then insert into a game, and he's doing that. That's and he's crazy. Done a bit of it. So it's amazing when you kind of go behind the scenes what people are able to do and achieve. And he's shown me some of his models, and it is just insane the level of detail he goes into. He's like, look at the scuff marks on the metal, that sort of thing. Obviously, this is modelling.
You have to nowadays. The gaming community demands it.
Absolutely.
Back in the day when you were looking like what you focused on was the game play. If you think about, when I was first doing Pac-Man, who cares? It was a yellow dot with dots, yellow like round thing with dots and ghosts. You weren't bothered. Obviously, me and Carl, you were saying about Wolfenstein, Doom. Those early games were fantastic in terms of what they're doing. And then the whole world started to go increased reality. If you look at some of the new Forza games now, when you're driving, it's a blur. But if you actually watch your replay of the skid marks, the rain that's streaking off, I'm just like flabbergasted.
They were quite clever with Forza. So when we were in New Zealand, my cousin, family member had it, and the kids were playing with the steering wheel and all this, and it looks amazing. I'm sure it was Forza. Anyway, they were trying to run over sheep in a field. And they've made, as they do, they've made it so it is like physically impossible to run over the sheep.
Yes, because they run out the way all the time.
Yeah, it was hilarious to watching them try. So, there we go. There's the other side of it. So after Codemasters, obviously that was your QA side, but obviously you've moved on from them. What happened next? What was the next part of your journey?
Yeah, so I moved on to a company called Fabric Games, which were a larger part of Firesprite Studios, like like their sister company kind of thing. I got my first junior level design. I originally applied for QA actually, but I knew a guy on Twitter at the time who works in level design. He was a level designer there. He said, "We'll set up a call. Do you fancy having a shot at being a junior level designer?" I said, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah.
So I interviewed with them, met the team, got on with them really well. I'm still with them to this day.
Oh, lovely.
Chris, manager, personal shout out.
Yeah, nice.
Chris gave me a chance, and Errol, the company director, he also interviewed me. I thought these just seem like mates. To be honest.
Exactly.
Like, these don't seem like managerial bosses that are like shouting at you all day long or ordering you about and things like that. It's like having a group of mates. So I said, yeah, I'll have a bit of that. Yeah, so I accepted the offer, moved. And that's around the time that COVID hit. So I was working remotely, but they're a remote studio anyway, regardless.
Right, okay.
So I decided to move back up north at that point because I didn't have to go to the office anymore.
Yeah.
Very interested now that dynamic changed, but in a good way. I worked at Fabric for, I think it was about a year and a half, 2 years before we got bought out by Sony.
As you do.
As you do.
Yeah.
And then I worked on an unannounced title there for about, I think it was about 3-5 months, something like that. And then moved to present day. We decided to form our own studio called Expression Games. And I've been there ever since.
So that was you with some friends forming that. So are you, forgive me, are you a director, are you a shareholder, or you just formed that company?
No, I was just there from day one as an employee. Yeah.
Right.
So
cool.
We had a team ready to
go into it.
As soon as the studio was set up and ready, we had the team ready.
Excellent. So for the Sony, can you tell us any games that you worked on there? I mean, again, I don't want to come on to the unannounced game. I'm going to follow that up with another question. But any particular games you can mention?
I can't, unfortunately.
Oh, so that's fine. Not a problem at all. There we go. Okay. So.
All the good ones.
An unannounced game, again, you do read some of the stories now. I mean, there was a recent one by Microsoft where they'd worked like 2 or 3 years on a game and then decided not to release it. Yep. That's, I mean, again, all the people that have put all of their hard work into it must be like, bugger.
It can be, to be fair. I mean, I've been a level designer for about 3 years now. I'm now a senior, and I only have one credited title as a level designer.
But you've worked on loads.
I've worked on quite a few, yeah. I would say, like, the less experienced people might be a bit jaded by it, a bit fed up of it. But to be honest, it gets to that point, and it's easy for me to sit here and say this now, but it gets to a point where credits are cool, but they're not the be-all and end-all. They don't define your success.
No, absolutely.
Your experience defines your success. So,
and I think what you were saying there, Carl, is that other people knowing about you, if you said to them, oh, I worked on the level of blah, even though that game may have never been released or whatever, you never got your credit. Because they're they'll have like gone, okay, nod to you, Carl. I see what you've done there. Yeah. Oh, that's it. Honestly, my friend, that is amazing.
So I think the biggest change growing up for me growing up over the last few years, and the change you've seen as well, is the video game, the gaming market is completely transformed. When I was at school and I was doing it, just seemed like a bit of a, yes, people had Segas or PlayStations or whatever it was, N64s, all of that sort of stuff. But if you gamed on a PC, you're a little bit weird in air quotes. I worked out that if I built my own PC, I could get twice the spec of the PC for what you'd pay in the shop. So that's when I got a job as a pot washer, saved up money and bought a PC, bought all the PC parts, didn't have a clue how to put it together. And this is pre-YouTube, old. Put it all together and away you went. Absolutely. And I was like, well, this is great. You've got better graphics, better this, that, and the other. Now, for people not to game, and obviously the capability of consoles, because online gaming didn't happen with consoles and this, that, and the other in the same way, not until later years. Now, everybody does it. Yeah? Jess games, Alina games, so both teammates in the office. It is such a normal thing to do now. Whereas coming up through school, it was like, yeah, I love a game. I love playing on the consoles. But if you gamed on a PC, it would just look if you were like keyboard and mouse, just really different. And then you look at some of the big competitions. Dota 2 is like the biggest one, biggest prize money. That's the big famous one. They've got arenas full of people watching people play a game.
Yeah.
The difference in the market of gaming has been phenomenal. So I've had a look at your LinkedIn in terms of timing and stuff. You hit it at a really nice time, I think, to come through.
Yeah, I would agree. Absolutely. It's incredible, like some of the money to be made now in esports and things like that. Like these players get thousands and thousands to I mean, don't get me wrong, they're fantastic at playing the game. I mean, they're the best in the world, but like it's incredible how much you can make.
Yeah,
a living.
I must admit, I watched some of the Fortnite tournaments. Fortnite is not my game. I don't play it. Yeah. I know what to do and how to do and what to do. And so to see them within seconds and their fingers sort of like build a house, jump onto it, shoot the guy, jump back out, I'm just like, no, I'm just, I try these things. I'm like, right, what do I do? Oh, I'm dead. Hang on, I've respawned. So I'll run over. Oh, I'm dead.
Yes. So just random Google here, but the video game market size was estimated $217 billion US dollars in 2022.
What's that in Bitcoin?
One.
Hang on a minute. I'll just ring Rob.
But that is absolutely dramatic, and I think there is obviously, I think. The culture of gaming has changed massively.
Yeah.
You've still got
it's accepted a lot more now.
Yeah, the older crowd that it was, like when I came up, not everybody did it, and that's absolutely fine and all this. But nowadays, what I'm interested to see is when my kids grow up, to see how many adults are still gaming. Will we become like Ready Player One?
We mentioned that the other day, didn't we?
Yeah, I love that film.
I love that film. But obviously, I mean, I'm 54 and I'm still an avid gamer. Again, back then, if I go back to my youth, and I look to my elders back then, none of them were gamers.
Yeah.
Absolutely none. Now, bless my dad, and I've told you this type of, my dad, Carl, 79, 80 this year. Yeah, every morning, gets up, switches on his Xbox, his massive Xbox Series S, and plays Tiger Woods golf.
It doesn't surprise me, and I'll tell you why. Because my granddad, in his 70s, plays Sniper Elite 5 till about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Get out of here. That is incredible.
Yeah, he loves it.
Absolutely. My dad hasn't got the dexterity at all. I tried to do fast action games anymore, something that needs sort of like time. And it's like, nah, give up, throws the console away.
Tiger Woods golf, that takes me back to university. We used to play that all the time.
When PCs first came out when I was that, I originally played Mean 18.
Did you?
The green CGA graphic game. Whereas if you got it right, hole in one every time because it was that nowadays wind and God knows what else.
Yeah, there's a lot, and I've tried playing real golf. I'm even worse. Okay, so I've got a question. So you moved from QA to level designer.
Yes.
Day one. Right, Carl. Here is a blank box of pixels. Yes. Arrange them into how take me through the process of someone goes, right, is it someone gives you a brief, we need to do a level in a certain setting, a town, I don't know, I'm pulling things out of town. We need, like an entry into that. How does all of that work? Like, who comes up with that idea? Is that you? Or is there a brief to work off and then you're trying to match it? And then how do you go, what does the town look like? Because obviously there's one thing is making it look like how you want to look at it. I'd be terrible at that. The next thing is going, how should it look? Because it could be placed somewhere.
What I love is, Carl, one question.
Here's
16 billion
tell
questions.
Me all of that. Does that make sense, though?
It does, yes.
How on earth, the question, how on earth do you go about, first one is, does someone go, build this, and you've got to build it to spec? Or does someone go, build this sort of thing, and then how do you inform that?
Sure. So thankfully, Chris, my manager, he was very kind to me on my first day. He said, we just want you to build a room. So for my first week, I just built a single room, which was...
single room?
A single room, which
I can do that. 4 doors, 1 window, 1 door.
4 doors?
Yeah, 4 doors. All right.
Walls made of doors.
Yeah.
You fired.
I fired.
And within this brief, he said what the room needed to include, a list of stuff. So I designed the room with those things in mind. So this was just a health station.
Right.
So obviously, you played plenty of games yourselves. A health station is
safe house. Yeah.
Yeah, a safe house. Exactly. Yeah, a place to restock your health supplies, etc. So thankfully, that was nice and straightforward. With the game being a sci-fi title, I had a lot of free reign to do it however I wanted. But I was also given a guideline of how big to make it as well, because otherwise you fall into this trap of making a room too big and too complicated for what it needs to be.
I get you.
So with those metrics and dimensions in mind, I just planned out how the room might look, how it might flow, and then just started putting the walls and doors and stuff.
4 doors. Yeah.
2 doors.
2 doors.
2 doors. One in, one
out.
out. Yes, exactly. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So you start off with a room, and then you just build it up from there. It depends on the type of game as well.
Of course it does. Yeah.
So for the game I was working on, that was essentially a series of rooms connected together.
Right.
So that made blocking the levels out easier than it would be a town, for example, because we already had the dimensions and sort of specifications ready for us.
Right.
And we just had to work within those rule sets for everything.
Wow.
So you had sci-fi as like the sort of theme. How do you go about picking? What do you have to do there then? Are you know, because I think it'd be easy. I think everyone would immediately be going, right, let's get a wall, let's get a thing. And before you know it, you've kind of gone, what have I done? do you have to do some research beforehand? What sort of things do you do?
Does it depend on the game type? Does it depend on the condition? Because I played some games where I've walked into a safe house, stocked up, you run around, but then there's a massive explosion. The next time I go back to the safe house, half of it's destroyed. I can't get to the thing that I want to get to. I've got to find a way around. So how on earth does all of that pull together?
So with rooms like that, you've just got to be careful with the sort of scripting side of things to make sure that things like that will never happen.
Right, got you.
And I would say that you've just got to make sure that the mechanics cater to the game. In terms of planning, with it being sci-fi, I did a lot of research on things like, architecture. So I was looking at Alien quite a lot.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Like all the industry
Mr.
standards.
Greiger.
Just for blocking out a space that makes sense.
Yeah.
When you're designing stuff, you always have that shape theory in mind of how it's going to look. Obviously, the artists make it look pretty, but they need a base to build on top of. So we try and be as architecturally minded as possible, especially when it's an interior space. It's not perfect. Obviously, there's a lot of rounds of iteration when play testing, but we just need to make sure that we're giving the artist as much of a base as possible to build off.
So when you're building the room, Carl, is it a flat room, as in there's no graphics there, or you just literally design, like I see a blueprint? It's literally just that there'll be a door here, or is it slightly more than that?
So it depends on what kit you've got available at the time. If you don't have a kit, it'll literally just be a cube.
Right.
Like
okay.
I use a lot of blockout cubes, and
that will be a door, that will be a tree, that will be a cupboard.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll get base blockout. They're called blockout meshes. Those are your cubes, your stairs, walls, doors, door frames, windows. Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Wow. So at first, people could be looking at your work going, well, he's not very good. It's just a room full of cubes.
Exactly.
That's Minecraft.
yeah, exactly.
I can do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, but obviously they're like, I'd describe it in marketing world as placeholders type thing to hold that. Can I ask you a quick question? Is that is out on, is that public?
Mortain, yeah, that's public.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, so can you talk to us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure, Mortain. So Mortain was our first map as a studio for Hell Let Loose.
Yeah.
Big title.
Big title, 100 players, 50 versus 50. Big maps, very big maps. 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers. So
is that what it measures? Because when you're playing, you don't. You're just running, but you don't really know. So this is for Hell Let Loose, yeah.
It is, yes. As I said, that was our first big studio release. It's set in France, so we did a lot of World War II research, as we always do. I think the map took about 6 to 8 months to make, all in.
Goodness me.
That's quicker than I'd.
No, I was thinking that's...
Yeah.
I was thinking that's
fast.
longer because, with everything available to you, just go clunk, 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 clunk.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah.
You know, with everything that, but wow.
You would think so, but unfortunately, it's never that
No,
straightforward.
I can imagine it's not me.
So obviously, just lean into that. So it's it's set in World War II. Hell Let Loose. Feel free to search for it on YouTube. It's very popular.
It is still.
In terms of YouTube settings, gamers playing it and streaming it. But obviously, you must have felt quite a responsibility to get it right.
I did, yes. So I was a mid-level designer at the time, but like one of the good things about Expression Games is you're given a lot of free rein in terms of responsibility. So even though I technically had a senior and a lead, I was still given the responsibility to make sure that that map shipped. And that's what gave me the experience to progress. So I had a junior working with me. Well, I had several juniors at one point. We all sort of swap around because we've got other work to do as well within the company. But at the time, the majority of it was myself and a junior. Shout out to Keenan Southern.
Yeah.
And us two were responsible for the most part of blocking the map out and supporting it from initial block out to full release. So I like to think of a level designer as a caretaker, because even though we blocked it out, we're on the project right, or the map in this instance right until the end of development. Even while we're not technically doing anything inside the map, we're responsible for making sure that it ships in the best possible quality that we can.
That's really good.
That only comes through collaboration and play testing and feedback, etc.
So moving on to this then, obviously you got, is it 2K by 2K you said?
It is, yes.
Yeah. Excuse me. That's a lot of space to fill.
Here's my health station. Hang on, I've got 1,999 kilometres to go.
Yeah. So how on earth do you go? Because obviously that's an urban setting, but I can see greenery. How do you go? This is how this is how big the town needs to be.
Yeah.
Do you have to work out how to get around the town? Like, do you know where people are attacking from, if that makes sense?
I just
where
see information spilling out of your head.
Yeah,
there's a million
it's just
questions.
happening. So, like, take me through that. You got a 2K by 2K blank canvas. Obviously, you've set it in a setting, in a place. This is a representation of an actual event, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Right. Okay. Take me through how on earth do you take that 2K by 2K and bottle it into that space? Because actually, taking a real place and trying to do that, how difficult to do that?
It can be difficult, surprisingly, because so what we do is in the research phase, we obviously research the battle itself and what took place. But obviously, it's a multiplayer game, so we're not sticking to the history in that sense.
I see what you mean.
We're just giving the players a playground in which to fight over, essentially.
But creative license, but the actual fact, I mean, I'm that gamer. Playing in a map where I'm like, this is where X happened.
Yeah.
You know, you quickly forget about that, but actually it's what makes the game as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we do a Google overlay on Google Earth that allows us to capture the area. And then we base that on, we essentially import that into the level on our flat canvas, because we know how big the map is going to be. So once we've got that flat plane on the map, we say, right, we know the town's over there, we know X, Y, Z is there, but because it's a video game, we've got that creative freedom where if there is a space we don't know what's there, we can make it up as long as it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you wouldn't stick a factory block somewhere where there's in the middle of a town.
Exactly.
You're right. You're like, okay, typically I would expect to see that there.
Yeah.
You know, like that there.
Not a Tesla garage.
No. Not a Tesla car.
Okay, so you can. So obviously there you've kind of got to go, right, what makes sense? And I suppose is it going, we don't want to duplicate what we've done over here. We want it, because you want to make it interesting, right?
Sure.
Okay, so, and then in terms of getting around the map, I think that'd be for me the trickiest part in terms of getting around. I know in lots of urban maps from playing games, Call of Duty, this, that and the other, obviously you've got to run through rooms. Sometimes there's a hole blown in the wall and you can jump through it. How hard is it to do that? Are you looking at like where you think everyone will be having their online fight in terms of doing it and trying to work out how to create the right environment to make it a good battle? Or
yeah, absolutely. Like so it's a little column A, a little column B. So obviously we study the town layout because we get aerial reconnaissance photos from back in the day. We use those as much as possible. When we don't have those, what we typically do is we follow the Google map as it is now, because while buildings and houses tend to change, main streets don't often change that much.
Yeah.
So we know that the rough layout of the town, it's never going to be a perfect one-to-one scale, and we wouldn't want it to be anywhere, because it would be an absolute nightmare if you could get in every single building, for example.
Oh, God,
it
no.
would just turn into a maze. But we sort of plan out, as you say, like where we think those fights are going to take place. And that's when we roll it out to the public for a test before it gets released and get that feedback. So one of the key pieces of feedback we had on Mortain is that there wasn't enough enterable buildings. And we thought there was, but players who were fighting over the town decided, actually, no, we want more. So I was like, all right, cool.
We'll
so
open them up.
Exactly, that's helpful. So we had a few months left to finish the map. We then went in and practically, I think it was nearly tripled the amount of existing enterable buildings. So, here you go, players. You want enterable buildings?
You got them.
You got them, yeah, absolutely.
Picking up on a question that Adam has, though, you're running around. Again, what I find incredible about this is that there are only times, and obviously I think it's because of my age, Carl, that I will play a game where I am going, wow, look at the detail in this room. Look at the door, look at the window, look at the fact that there's some photographs and there's some pictures hanging on the wall, as opposed to some other people that are just going, yeah, whatever, it's a room, I'm running through it to get to point A to kill person B. How on earth do you figure out that each room back in the day could look similar, but everybody's quite different? I mean, I do get it where I've been in some rooms and I'm like, okay, this is an exact replica of a room I remember in level 7 and this is level 14. But how on earth do you get around that?
So for Hell Let Loose specifically, we just do research, to be honest, find out what a particular house from a particular period looked like. So you'd get the layout from a 1940s house, for example. We've got a talented artist, shout out to Ben Lucas, who also happens to come from an architecture background. So we've got some multidisciplined, talented people who figure this stuff out, and they do a great job of making it believable, essentially.
Wow. Because I look back at a lot of 70s photographs, and even when I was a kid, I'm like, here's me as a child at my mum's house, my granddad's house, my neighbour's house. They all looked similar because of fashion, because of whatever. They all had the big TV in the corner, and they all had that. Whereas nowadays, everybody has a big TV on the wall. But again, you must sort of like say, look, I can't make every room identical. I also can't make it absolutely unique, because I'd spend hours just making a room that somebody's zipping through. Yeah. But again, there must be a talent just to go, I'll tweak something just to make it look subtly different.
Thankfully, I don't have to worry about that.
There we go. Move on next.
But what I do need to be concerned about in terms of buildings and things like that is that the player can move through it freely and not get stuck on objects.
I know, but that's brought me to another whole world.
Not get your head stuck on the bottom of a stairwell.
Exactly.
Trying to run through.
Exactly.
We've got to make sure that the metrics of the building are correct, so that we can cater to them.
So you're just basically, as you say, it's the framework, it's the whole, what actually goes on the wall. Like there's a TV, there's a fireplace, there's a photograph, there's what. That's not your level at this moment in time.
No, somebody smarter than me does that.
No, I'm not smarter than you, man. This is incredible stuff. But one of the questions before I let Adam let loose again, because he's already...
Adam let loose, well
exactly.
played. That was brilliant.
You see, one of the things I've got is that, I'm amazed at some of the games that I play. Massive town, obviously trying to get to a particular objective, but then the map may come back on itself at a different time in the game, and now the town's been destroyed. Again, are you involved in that? Whereas this is the town, but now I can't get to there anymore because there's a building crushed. There's again, I'm not trying to be obvious you can't let me get to the place what I could do before, but that's because the house has collapsed and I can't run up those stairs anymore. Again, are you involved in all of that? You must be.
Not for Hell Let Loose, because the maps are static.
Right, but you know what I'm getting at.
But absolutely, you see a lot of games where progression is... changes the environment, doesn't it? And
yes, that's what I'm getting at.
The clever stuff.
So I'm just having a look here. I've got some footage on. I mean, the game looks amazing. It's massively rated on Steam, and it's on all platforms. But I'm just looking at here, obviously there's gaps in walls and things like that. Are you anticipating that?
Yeah.
We'll let a little run through here. I mean, there's a pile of rubble here on the floor that obviously obstructs the player. Are you involved in that?
Yeah,
sort
absolutely.
Of thing?
Yeah. We block sight lines off and create sight lines and opportunities. that pile of rubble there, you could probably climb over the wall using that if you needed to.
So you're putting in elements where you go,
Yeah.
pile of rubble here to
allows
go
you
over
to jump over the wall.
Yeah, the way I design stuff is that everything has a purpose. Everything should have a purpose.
Wow. I find it incredible, Carl, that you're working with these placeholders or blocks, as you call them.
Yeah.
But in your mind, you must be sort of like sat back thinking, closing your eyes, going, okay, the player comes in here. He's going to look at that. Eventually, let's say that the wall, let's say that the way's blocked. What I'll do is that in this other room, because I know the brief of the game, I'll be able to get a barrel or something. He'll put it against the wall. He'll explode it. That will destroy the wall. He'll then go through. So you're just sat there going, okay, I can see where this is going.
Yeah.
That's why I find this fascinating.
Yeah, I'm just looking. There's been another good bit there where this guy ran into a walled area, put one of the walls you could jump over. It wasn't as whole. Yeah, so there's like all of that. God, I think like when you start pulling on the thread of what you need to do as a designer, it gets really tricky.
But even
I'd have everyone bottlenecked in a corner
No,
with
but-
only one way to come back out.
But even what you were saying there, I never thought that you're actually discussing sight lines. Like this is a good sniping position.
Yeah.
This is a good position where people will actually get, not trapped. But again, you must be thinking about all of that.
Yeah, because there's so many different role types in Hell Let Loose as well. You've got riflemen who, have got a semi-automatic rifle, mid-range. You have snipers who obviously have long range.
Yeah.
And then obviously machine gunners who are up close. And then you've got to think about tanks, trucks, jeeps, artillery. There's a lot of considerations to make. And obviously you can't cater to every single role at every single moment. But what you can do is make sure that you're thinking about all of those roles in every section that you're blocking out to some degree.
And I think the problem is you're saying the sightline there. So whilst you're saying about sightlines, the number of combinations of sightlines that you can then have,
Yes.
it's I don't know, not infinite, but there'll be a high number. There's this guy's running. He's got several people coming at different angles. There's so many different sight lines. So trying to think through. So obviously there's trees and things that are obscuring there across some open land. Yeah. You've got church spires. You've got walls. You've got gaps in walls. But then actually you're having to create some. I mean that looks great. That building. You got all these. It's not just one sight line. It's not the Wolfenstein.
Correct.
Where you've got the map away you go. You've got to create something that works for everybody in every position at once, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. And sightlines tends to be a taboo term because people worry about sightlines. But actually, when you've got these moments, that's when a lot of the magic happens in the game because it creates that sense of tension. That's why in Hell Let Loose we have wide open fields because A, they're natural. There are a lot of open fields in France. But it creates that tension because if you need to use that field, you're then worried, am I going to get picked off here by a sniper? And that's when you've got to adjust your play style to make sure that you try and avoid getting caught by the enemy.
Unbelievable.
I love it. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Okay, so I think then, tech-wise.
Yes. How has your tech changed from when you were working originally at Codemasters to where you are now?
Yep, so in terms of tech, the industry hasn't changed a great deal in terms of like rigs and stuff like that. Because gaming is more accessible these days, tech is pretty. As long as it can run your engines, that's all you need it for. Like,
would you say that's partly because obviously, you buy a console, and that's the hardware you've got for that iteration. So obviously you can move it on. The industry could probably move on further from a developer standpoint.
Yes.
But it can't because of the devices. So is it always having to play down the resource side of things?
So that is a huge consideration, actually. Yeah, when you've got multiple platforms, they need to perform well on the PlayStation and Xbox. Like, it's no good having this amazing map on PC that's got 1 million polygons everywhere and everything runs beautifully. But you run it on a PlayStation and you can't even get in because everything's just
stuttering so badly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you're kind of limited by the device, I suppose, unless it's...
Sometimes, yeah, if it's multi-platform, absolutely.
Right.
Hence why the tools haven't changed on that side of things. What I'd be interested in to know, and the example I've used a couple of times, is when I set up my business, I had Photoshop.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to remove a background, I would take the pen tool and go, all the way around the person, make a mistake, have to delete it, start again. Now you press remove background. Has there been any changes? Because it's using AI to go, this is the person, this is the background. Have you seen changes like that come in, like I have with things like Photoshop?
I have to a degree, yes, with the artists. The artists use Photoshop quite a lot. I personally don't. I have no need of it. But yeah, I think like a lot of people are skeptical about AI and the trend that it's heading in. But I think if it's used in the right way, absolutely. I would say that like the advances in Photoshop, for example, just make artists' lives so much easier and quicker. Like they can focus on what they want to do rather than have to be, as you say,
chopping out a pen, with a pen tool. Yeah, and I think you're right. And people do often say, and you hear it in the news, AI is going to replace people. And it's like, no, it just allows them to focus on what they're good at, or maximising the timing. Yeah. Them using the pen tool, clicking on each pixel is not a good use of their time. Exactly. Ultimately, you can get it pretty much there with some AI, and that's where it's really valuable because then they can focus on the next job.
Absolutely. So, in terms of your level designing, maybe a silly question. The level designing tools that you used in Codemasters, are they fairly well the same as now what you're using with Expression Games?
They're completely different because they're different engines. Right. So at Codemasters, I didn't have access to engine. I was provided builds.
Right. Okay.
Which has essentially just been given a copy of the game to test on. But I do know they used a completely different engine.
So the engine is the thing that creates
like
the game.
Unity,
for people who don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So for people that don't know what an engine is, it's the thing that makes the game.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. But in terms of Unreal Engine, obviously things have changed a lot. We're now we're in Unreal Engine 5. With Hell Let Loose, we're still in Unreal Engine 4, last gen, surprisingly.
Right.
We are potentially looking into possibly upgrading at some point, but that's future down the line. The tools themselves have advanced quite a bit in Unreal. You get access to a lot more features, which is always handy to have more tools. Which even helps level designers as well, because we're given like additional blockout tools from the get-go, so we don't have to create our own kit, for example.
Right.
And the sequences and things have improved quite a lot. So cutscenes we have a lot more functionality for cutscenes, for example. Now, traditionally, level designers don't do cutscenes, but the new tools allow us to do that, so we don't have to necessarily rely on a cinematic artist as much.
Yeah,
we're given
a lot of tools. One of the games that I've recently played, and forgive me, I can't remember. It was made into a film, Drake Brothers. I'm
trying to think.
It's a big Sony. It was a big Sony game, but it was released on that. There's like 4 of them where he's across the world, and it was a big film release for Spider-Man guy, whatever it is. Anyway, what I'm getting at there is what I found incredible is that I would run through a particular town, city, or whatever, and then the game would almost take over, and it would turn into a cut scene of doing stuff, and then it would the camera would flick back round to me, and then I would suddenly be back in the game, and I'm like, that wasn't a cutscene. Like cutscenes in my days were loading, cinematic.
It's your Red Alert 2 videos.
Yeah, absolutely. Red Alert 2.
They are classic cinematic. If anyone ever wants to see a true cinematic, YouTube. Red Alert 2.
And that went from real life actors into that. But nowadays, as you were just saying there, that triggered me. The cutscenes, they're not part of a cutscene anymore. Like the latest Tomb Raider game, when I was playing that, again, you would just have a cinematic, but it was like using the same engine. And, Laura would walk out looking over a big, Sphinx area or Egypt area, and suddenly the camera almost seamlessly went from cinematic, and I can move her again. Yeah. I can just look back where that cinematic thing just happened. To me, that's incredible.
It is, absolutely.
I think Unreal 5, so I've seen some Unreal 5 stuff. It looks unreal, is what I'd say. No, it does. Like
that's why it's called that.
They released, when it first came out, they released some videos and stuff, and you are like, am I looking at the real world or not? Yeah. There is some stuff that comes mightily close.
Yeah, there is.
So it'd be really exciting to see. But then my question is, and this is just a personal opinion here, how real do we want games to actually get? Do you see what?
Well, yeah, I mean, graphics are brilliant, but you can't substitute that for good gameplay. And to be honest, it depends how you feel about video games. Like a lot of players play games to escape reality. Yeah. So would you necessarily want them to go from reality to a video game that looks like reality?
Like you were saying, player one.
Yeah. Well, the thing I always queried, because I always like to sort of just question it.
Yeah.
So I've got a VR headset, for example, and there's, you know, when my first experience I did VR was my mate going, here, stick this on, and it was like this scary clown thing. Yeah. I'm like, no, get it off. Why don't I want this? But I'm like, violence in VR, and I think this is more of a moral question. Yeah. Like, to actually hit someone, you've got to pretty much hit them, and you're in that first person perspective. Yeah. And I think one of the battles that we see in the gaming industry is, yes, how real is too real? Also, like you say, escapism. There are places, you know, Fortnite, one of the pretty much the biggest game out there, that is not real looking. It's character based. I have a hot dog character. Yes. You know, but like, I think there's a question out there that I'm interested to see, because the more real graphics get, it's going to be like, well, how real do we actually want it to be? Yeah. And we're not there to, we're getting there to discover that, but we're not there. But yeah, I was interested to see what your take is on that.
Okay. Yeah. We're coming to the end of this now, Carl. Sure. Some of the stuff, and again, I appreciate you cannot talk about it, but some of the stuff that you're working on for the future games and stuff, again, how much reality, picking up what Adam says, how much in terms of open world, because that's a big thing now. You know, players are demanding 30, 40, 50 hours. I know obviously we're going up to see Dan shortly. You know, talk to him about open world games. Like, no, boring, cannot stand it. You know, whereas other people are like, no, I want to be able to. The last couple of games I've been playing, even down to something where it's not realism, so the latest Zelda game, you know, go to A, and I'm like, that's fine, I'm off to it. What's that over there? 4 hours later, I'm going, what was I doing? Yeah. So how are new games that are coming up in the future? Again, do you take a lot of influence from the community? Do you look at the current games that are out there? And obviously, in terms of the span of the games, you don't release games in months anymore. It's years. Are you designing something now that may be, you know, in a year's time or 2 years when you're coming to release, you go, bloody hell, we now have to change it because it's been done before, or something like that. You know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, sure. So there's no immediate plans for the future for that. I'm currently working on future Hell Let Loose content.
Wow. Still going strong.
Still going
strong. We're figuring out what we're going to do next year.
Right.
So, yeah, it's an exciting time, but... open world games, don't get me wrong, I agree, to be honest. I get so distracted by them. I love them.
Me too.
Because I've got this brain where I just want to complete everything.
Yes.
But yeah, they can be overwhelming, can't they?
They can be, if in order to complete or 100% it, as we call it, you've got to do what I do call mundane traveling.
Yes.
You know, it's great where you've gone, okay, I've completed the main objective. Yeah. Now I can go do the side quest, but actually I can just fast travel, you know, and that's never realism. You'll fast travel to that city to go and get it. Where I have to spend 5 minutes on a horse to get to some godforsaken...
You're talking about Red Dead Redemption.
Red Dead Redemption 2. I'll never do it. I'm just like, no. You know, so sorry, go on.
So my question is, can you still play games and enjoy it, or are you sat there analysing it the entire time?
This is rubbish design. Who designed this?
So the way I deal with that is I don't typically work on games that I would necessarily play in my free time.
Okay.
So I do play with Hell Let Loose sometimes with the community, but it's not my sort of game, really.
No.
And that is by design. That helps me
switch. By design. I like what he did then.
Yeah.
That helps me switch off. So I play a lot of MMORPGs, as your son knows.
Yeah,
Dan.
absolutely.
We're in the middle of an expansion at the moment.
Huge expansion, he said.
Yes, huge. So I to switch off. That's how I cope with doing a level design job for 8 hours a day, and then still find time to play on an evening and not get burnt out by it all. Because naturally, you know, 16 hours a day on a video on video games, you'd think, oh, it's not healthy, that. But
I'm wondering what the downside is.
There is no downside.
Thank you, Carl. Funnily enough, I just want to pick up on the DLC. So this is an interesting point. Obviously, the DLC you're talking about, I don't play the Elden Ring stuff. What's the DLC called?
The Elden Ring one.
Sorry, not the Elden Ring DLC.
I don't know. I don't play it.
You don't play it?
No.
What's the big one that Dan's playing at the moment?
Final Fantasy 14.
That's the bit. So there's a big, massive DLC that's been released recently, and the community have basically gone to the world and gone, it's way too hard. It's way too hard. And a lot of the community, half the community is sort of like going, no, it's not. Mm-hmm. That's the whole point of the game. You know, it can't be easy. So my question to you is, how much does the community give you to your games? Like the whole thing about, we want more open space, we want more rooms, we want more. There must be a massive feedback nowadays that you get.
There is, and it often pulls in different directions. So what you've got to do is you've just got to take it with a pinch of salt and analyse what's best for the map. Like, you're never going to please everybody.
No, you can't, can you?
But you take on the constructive criticism and just apply it in the best possible way. So we have discussions about this as well. It's not a case of me reading the feedback and saying, right, I'm now going to put 20, 30 new buildings in the map. It doesn't work like that.
No.
So we'll collaborate as a team and say, right, this is the feedback we've got. I think we should action this. What do you guys think? And then we sort of like decide as a team how we're going to progress with feedback.
That's nice.
That must be that must be the hard part, I'd say, out of the whole thing. I know you've got all the skills that you need to do, but actually, because you want to serve the audience.
When obviously you release a game like Hell Let Loose, the actual response that you get from the community, you must get one hell of a buzz when people are going, this is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. You do get a lot of criticism.
Of course you do.
You've got to take that with a pinch of salt again, but one positive comment in a sea of 1,000 negative comments always matters more. So
all you need to do is look at the Steam reviews. Because I saw it. It's
can't
right
please
up there.
everybody. You cannot please everybody all of the time. But I think nowadays it's part of, I would like to say, part of our life. Yeah. I'm always looking now, you know, when I'm looking in terms of my game and my life, I'm always going, oh, look at that next big release. I can't wait for the next Tomb Raider. I can't wait for this. I can't wait for that. You know, I'm big into my...
I enjoy going. It's escapism. It's, you know, I'm more of a social gamer, so we'll be on Discord, chatting to your mates. And it's, you know, you're at home, but you're having a good chat.
With your mate Ben soon.
Yeah, we found a potential Ben. He's coming on to do some work with us, and then he talks about, he goes, I play this game called Factorio, right? And then I went, got you. And he went, I look at my business like this. And I went, you need to meet Andy. So,
we should have Ben on the podcast.
We should, how we Factorio
so listen, wrapping
his business.
Up, Carl, it has been an absolute pleasure. I'm glad I've blown Adam's mind.
I loved it. It's fantastic. I didn't cheat. I was well prepared with questions.
All right then. What can you tell us about your company? You know, how can people find out about you? Are you currently recruiting, or is it, you know, anything that you can tell us about how people can find out about you and the company?
Yeah, so Expression Games started off with around, I think it's about 30, 40 of us originally. We're now closing in on that 100 mark.
Wow. So
we've seen some rapid expansion. Fully remote studio. You just have to be UK based. That's all. That's the only requirement. We are actively recruiting for a potential new project. So have a look on our Expression Games Careers website. We are on LinkedIn. We're present on Twitter as well.
What's the website, Carl? Is it just Expression Games?
It's just expressiongames.com.
Right, okay. Find out about that.
Splendid. Well, thank you so much for coming in. Yeah, round of applause.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Love that. Hello, Lisa. Mate, you're up there. You're up there. That was awesome. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Carl. I really appreciate that.
I look forward to hearing what comes out next.
Yeah.
I've added you on LinkedIn.
Have you?
So there we go.
Exactly.
So I'll be able to
quite active on LinkedIn, yes.
No, that's good. As I say, I first met Carl through Dan, you know, and it was one of those things where it's like, meeting up with Carl, and I think we first met at the beach, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
We did. We were having a pint, and I was like, all right, so...
Was it the volleyball Top Gun scene?
No.
Not quite.
Not quite. So I was just meeting Dan, and went, Carl's coming along. I said, oh, great, so who's Carl? And Carl went, what does he do? He went, he's a games level designer. I went, right, get him to meet me.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant.
Oh, honestly, man.
So thank you so much. Absolute pleasure to have you.
Problem.
And wow, what an episode.
What an episode. Now, we normally do what we're doing for the weekend. I won't do it for me and him because we've got 2 more podcasts tomorrow because we're doing that. But if I just get, I'm doing the weekend, whatever. What are you doing the weekend? Yeah, whatever. Carl, what are you doing the weekend?
I'm out at Whitby on Saturday.
Oh,
yeah.
What are you going to Whitby for?
Booze cruise.
Nah, get in.
There's about 30 of us going to Whitby for the day.
Is that through Expression Games or just friends?
No, through friends from the Builders Arms.
See, he's got 30 friends, you've only got 4.
Yeah, so...
Right, just saying.
3 now. You're off the list.
I was never on it.
You were.
Oh, no, that's great, mate. Really good. So that'll be good then.
Fish and chips will be up.
Do you know what? Whitby fish and chips. Oh, my Lord.
Have you got a lucky duck? Need a lucky duck from Whitby. It's the only place that do them. Glass-blown ducks.
Oh, that's one for the calendar.
Google. No, you do. What was good is we take we took family there. They want you to put your pin for your country on. So my cousins, when they came over, they got to put their pin on New Zealand and stuff like that.
Very nice.
Yeah, Whitby lucky ducks. We've all got one in our household. Check it out.
So
I know it's not like the lads on tour. Let's go get lucky ducks. But there we go.
Hang on, who's lads on tour?
It is a treasure of Whitby, and I'll always sing its praises because it's the only place to do them.
So again, thank you, Carl. Thank you, Expression Games, and absolute what a series that was.
I love that. That was fantastic. So thank you so much. Yeah. Have a great weekend, everyone. Whenever this comes out.
Quiet. Yes,
it's Thursday.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Have a great weekend, everybody.
But whatever. Okay.
Right,
cybersecurity event. Come to that book.
26th of July.
Yeah, 26th of July. It's all over socials. And bye.
Bye.